The movie begins in 1970s Oregon on a chilly winter afternoon. A young girl notices a strange car parked outside her house through her bedroom window. Curious, she grabs her Polaroid camera and heads outside to investigate. Peering into the car, she sees a cloaked figure sitting in the passenger seat. Before she can get a closer look, she hears a voice coming from behind her house. Turning to see who it is, she encounters a person with a pale white face who eerily wishes her a happy birthday. The scene then shifts to the 1990s, where FBI boss Carter briefs his team on a series of recent murders. He informs them that a serial killer, self-named Longlegs, is targeting specific victims, going door to door on foot. Among the agents is the young and talented Lee Harker, who, despite her inexperience, shows great skill in investigations. Harker and her partner arrive in a neighborhood to question the residents. Her partner suggests she wait in the car while he conducts the interviews. As Harker waits alone, she hears a strange, unsettling voice and becomes suspicious of a nearby house. When her partner returns, she points out the house and insists it's worth investigating, despite not knowing why. She just has a strong feeling about it and suggests they call for backup. Armed, Harker enters the house, thoroughly checking the first floor before heading upstairs, where she finds a man sitting beside a bed. She warns him not to move, but the terrified man only responds incoherently. Later, Harker sits in the back of a car with Carter and Agent Browning outside the house. Carter explains that a seemingly happy family of 4 lived there for 25 years, even donating cakes to the church every Sunday, until the husband suddenly murdered his wife and children before killing himself. A letter, written in code and signed Longlegs, was found beside the bodies. Carter reveals that similar letters have been found at 10 other crime scenes involving families, but no one knows who the killer is. Browning comments that Harker might not be ready for this type of work. Back at the office, Carter shows Harker a wall covered with all the information about the case. He asks how she pinpointed the house, and Harker admits she doesn't know. It felt like someone whispered in her ear. Carter suggests she might have a strong sixth sense. Harker then asks if there was any connection between the families, and Carter notes that each family had a daughter whose birthday was on the 14th of the month. During her investigation, Harker falls asleep on the floor. Carter later finds her and tells her to relax, joking that she doesn't need to solve the case that day. She apologizes for losing track of time, and Carter invites her for drinks. Although Harker doesn't drink, Carter encourages her to share the information she's gathered. At a restaurant, Harker explains that there were no signs of forced entry in the houses, and all the victims were killed with items already present in the homes. Twice with registered shotguns and 8 times with kitchen knives. She adds that if not for the letters, it would almost seem like the killer was never there at all, likening it to a page out of the Manson family's crimes. Carter later introduces Harker to his wife and young daughter, Ruby. Ruby asks Harker if she'd like to see her room, and though hesitant, Harker agrees. In Ruby's room, the girl asks if Harker always wanted to be an FBI agent. Harker replies that she originally wanted to be an actress. Ruby then asks if being an agent is scary, to which Harker admits that it is. Ruby's mother arrives, telling her it's midnight and time for bed. Ruby invites Harker to her birthday party, and Harker agrees to attend. When Harker returns home, she hears a noise that unsettles her but dismisses it as her imagination. She calls her mom, Ruth, mentioning she can't sleep due to work-related thoughts. Ruth offers comfort, but Harker declines to share more. Ruth then reminds her that her birthday is coming up soon. As Harker hears the noise again, she decides to end the call and investigate. A loud knock at her door startles her, but no one answers when she calls out. Looking through the windows, she sees a figure standing in the woods. Terrified, Harker grabs her gun and rushes outside but finds nothing. Returning inside, she realizes she left the door open. She quickly closes it and searches the house, eventually finding a letter on her table that reads, "Don't open before January 14th. Harker opens the letter and finds a birthday card with a coded message signed, Longlegs. She quickly deciphers it. "If you tell them what you have figured out, I will cut off your mother's head and stain everything with it." The message leaves her terrified. The next day, Longlegs strikes again, murdering another family. Harker is called to the crime scene, where she discovers another letter. After decoding it, the message reads, "Nice try, but you failed." As she looks around, she finds a dead family in the master bedroom, while the father's body is in the garage with a self-inflicted throat wound. The sight of the decomposing bodies shocks her, but it strengthens her resolve to catch Longlegs. Later, Harker calls her mother, Ruth, to check in, mentioning she'll be very busy. Ruth asks if she's going to church, saying it protects against the devil, and wonders if she'll see her on her birthday. Harker doesn't give a clear answer. Determined to find a breakthrough, she decides to reinvestigate the case from the beginning. She opens the previous case files on her computer and begins taking notes. Once everyone leaves the office, she opens a book titled 9 Circles of Hell and starts deciphering the previous letters. The next day, Harker meets with Carter and tells him the murders are part of a satanic ritual. Carter, confused, asks for more details. She explains that the first murder occurred on July 14, 1966, and subsequent murders happened either 6 days before or after the victims' birthdays, forming an inverted triangle, a symbol of the devil. Still puzzled, Carter asks what this could mean. Harker reveals that she has also decoded the symbols in the letters, finding that they reference spending time at Carrie Ann's family farm. A local priest used to visit the farm weekly, but everything went wrong when Carrie Ann's father killed the priest, his wife, and himself with an axe, leaving Carrie Ann as the only survivor since she was at school during the incident. The incident happened on March 8th, and Carrie Ann's birthday was on March 14th, matching the same 6-day gap. Astonished by Harker's findings, Carter agrees they should visit Carrie Ann, believing she might have seen Longlegs. They decide to investigate the farm first since it's closer. Arriving at the farm, they search the entire house. Harker notices something unusual behind the house and calls Carter over. They discover a large storage area with something hidden in the floor. Carter opens it and finds a large doll concealed beneath the floorboards. The forensic team identifies the doll as finely crafted, with porcelain limbs, a body made of unbleached cotton and fabric, and human-like hair, indicating expert craftsmanship. When Carter asks about the doll's eyes and brain, the forensic doctor explains that the doll is hollow but produces a strange sound when exposed to a magnet. The doctor uses a magnet to trigger the sound, which causes Harker to experience a vision. In her vision, she sees a psychopathic man telling a young Carrie Ann that she should not fear the dark because she is the dark, before covering her with a black cloth. Carter asks to open the doll's head, but the doctor warns it might be a waste of time, as there is likely nothing inside. Harker and Carter then head to the psychiatric hospital where Carrie Ann is being treated. They meet with the head of the hospital, who reveals that Carrie Ann had been completely paralyzed and confined to a chair for almost 8 years, until 2 days ago, when she received her first visitor in all that time. Shocked, Harker checks the visitor log and sees her own name, Lee Harker, listed. She asks the head if they checked IDs, but he replies that it's not required. Harker meets with Carrie Ann, who asks if she has seen her before. Harker says she doesn't think so. Carrie Ann mentions that someone who looked like Harker visited her the day before. When Harker asks how she feels, Carrie Ann replies it's like waking up from a long dark dream. When asked about her parents and how she ended up in the hospital, Carrie Ann explains that she was a difficult child, and her parents couldn't handle it. She recalls her mother hating her and her father, who she remembers as kind, ultimately killing the priest and her mother. Carrie Ann cryptically adds, "Mom always hated me because of how I came out wrong when I was born." When Harker asks about the doll, Carrie Ann claims she doesn't remember it and begins cursing at her. Harker then goes to the restroom, looks at herself in the mirror, and resolves not to be frightened, determined to solve the case no matter what. The next day, back at the office, Harker mentions that Carrie Ann's recovery coincided with the day they found the doll. Carter suggests it might just be a coincidence. Harker insists they're missing something crucial, possibly some kind of doll magic. Carter is skeptical, dismissing the idea by saying Longlegs is just a psycho, not a wizard. He asks how the visitor knew Carrie Ann's name, and Harker admits she doesn't know. Carter pushes her to reveal anything she might be holding back. He then brings up Harker's mother, Ruth, which makes her uneasy. He mentions that when Harker was 8, Ruth reported seeing a tall, pale figure trespassing near their house on January 13, 1974, just before Harker's birthday on January 14. Carter asks if she remembers the incident, but Harker says no. He suggests visiting Ruth, thinking she might have more information. Feeling confused and exhausted, Harker drives to her mother's house. In the kitchen, Ruth seems happy and mentions they will celebrate Harker's birthday soon. When Harker asks if she remembers her 9th birthday, Ruth's mood darkens. She angrily insists she remembers nothing and refuses to discuss it further. Harker presses her, asking if someone had broken into their house, but Ruth denies it, saying no one came, no relatives, strangers, or even wolves. Still puzzled, Harker heads to her room and notices a box near her bed. Curious, she opens it and finds photographs she took on her 9th birthday. The images show a psychotic man, triggering unsettling memories. Harker recalls the same man speaking to her, and after Ruth confronted him, he laughed hysterically in a strange, melodious tone. He warned that if they let him in, he would bring them his wrath, and if they tried to make him leave, he would come back as often as he wanted. Harker rushes to Carter and shows him the photographs. "This is him," she says. When Carter asks if she's certain, she confirms it. Harker decides they must wait for Longleg's accomplice to make another move and kill at least one more family. The next day, the psychotic man, now identified as Longlegs, is waiting at a bus station with his bags packed. The FBI arrives and arrests him. During the interrogation, Longlegs asks about Agent Harker, revealing he knows her through a friend of a friend, and expressing a desire to wish her a happy birthday. Hearing this, Harker is visibly shocked and anxious. Agent Browning reports that all of Longleg's belongings are filled with notebooks and records, and the handwriting matches the letters found at the crime scenes. She notes that all his writings are related to satanic practices. Browning notes that, while there's no direct physical evidence linking Longlegs to the murders, it's clear that he follows satanic rituals, which are, in fact, legally permissible in the United States. Despite the lack of hard proof, the team believes he was involved in the killings. Ultimately, Longlegs is arrested and sentenced to life in prison. However, Agent Harker remains unconvinced that the case is truly closed. She is certain that someone else must be assisting Longlegs, someone who can easily gain the victim's trust and access their homes. It could be a child or someone who appears innocent and harmless. She insists that the case is far from over, suspecting that an accomplice is still out there. Realizing that today is the 13th, Agent Browning anxiously asks Harker what they should do next. With her resolve strengthened, she decides to confront Longlegs directly in the interrogation room. As she steps into the room, he greets her with a taunting smile, speaking in cryptic and unsettling tones. He recalls the day she decided to join law enforcement, claiming it had amused him greatly. "We had such a big laugh about it," he sneers, his eyes gleaming with a sinister light. He urges her to accept the gift and destroy it, and destroy yourself. His words are laced with mystery and malice. Harker presses him further, demanding to know who his accomplice is. He hints at someone else involved, saying, "Knock on the farmhouse door. The Camera family farmhouse will be so bright and white. You can't miss it." I knew then that the work we were doing was immaculate, and you're going to be in here for the rest of your life. I'll be a little bit of everywhere. Determined to uncover the truth, Harker continues to question him. "Who is the man downstairs?" Longlegs replies mockingly. "Why don't you ask your mother?" Before she can respond, he shouts, "Hail Satan!" and, in a shocking turn, gruesomely smashes his own head against the table, killing himself instantly. Agent Carter, furious with Harker, feels that the case has slipped through their fingers. Even though Longlegs is now dead, they are left with no concrete evidence, no tangible leads to pursue. The situation becomes even more dire when they learn that Carrie Ann, another person connected to the case, has jumped off the roof of a psychiatric clinic. This revelation leaves Harker feeling more confused and troubled than ever. Later, Agent Browning drives Harker back to her home. As they arrive, Browning asks Harker how she plans to proceed with questioning her mother, Ruth, who might have crucial information about the accomplice. Harker decides to go inside alone, intending to call for backup if necessary. Her main goal is to extract any clues Ruth might provide. Browning stays in the car, keeping watch. Once inside, Harker begins searching for her mother. Suddenly, she hears the sound of gunshots echoing through the house. Terrified, she rushes back outside to the car, only to discover Ruth standing over Agent Browning, who has been shot with a shotgun. Harker demands to know why Ruth did it. Ruth, with a crazed look in her eyes, responds, "Because they killed Longlegs." Bewildered, Harker insists that Longlegs took his own life, but Ruth remains adamant, claiming, He would have freed me too. Ruth then turns and shoots a nearby doll, her actions growing more erratic. Harker is puzzled by her mother's words. She collapses to the ground, realizing in that moment that she and the doll are somehow connected. While unconscious, Harker experiences vivid, disjointed visions. It's revealed that the doll, which had been controlling her mind and erasing her memories, is now destroyed. In a series of rapid flashbacks, the truth unfolds. Ruth was Longlegs' accomplice all along, disguised as a nun. As part of her role, Ruth had been delivering possessed dolls to families, fully aware that the demons inside would take over and commit unspeakable acts. Years ago, Ruth had made a desperate pact with Longlegs to save Harker's life, forcing her to become a pawn in his sinister game. Harker's own doll, which had remained untouched and unused, had granted her psychic abilities. In another flashback, it's revealed that Longlegs had been living in Harker's family basement during her childhood, which earned him the nickname, the Man Downstairs. When Harker regains consciousness, she finds herself in that very basement, only to hear a phone ringing nearby. She answers it, and a demonic voice on the other end warns her about Carter's daughter Ruby's 9th birthday party, which is happening that day. Realizing that the death of the Carter family would complete Longlegs' dark plan, Harker knows she must act quickly to save them. Harker rushes to the Carters' house, desperate to stop whatever evil is about to unfold. When she arrives, she finds the family already under the doll's spell, the very doll Ruth had delivered. Despite her frantic warnings, Anna announces it is time for the cake, and Carter heads to the kitchen to find a knife. Ruby, meanwhile, is transfixed by the doll, staring at it with a strange fascination. Ruth, who is also there, reveals that Anna is marked for death, and that Ruby will be next. As Anna makes her way to the kitchen, Harker pleads with Ruth to stop to end this madness. But Ruth, her expression resolute, argues that allowing the Carters to die is the only way to save them from eternal torment in hell. She insists she is doing this for Harker, believing that their deaths will finally break the curse. At that moment, Ruth gazes out at the water, her eyes wide with fear and awe, as she sees a monstrous figure emerging from the depths. She cries out, "Glory to Satan!" and warns Harker not to come any closer. With no other choice, Harker shoots her own mother, breaking the trance that has held Ruth captive. However, she soon realizes she is out of bullets and cannot destroy the doll. She urges Ruby to leave with her, but the young girl remains frozen, her eyes locked on the doll. The film ends on a chilling note, cutting back to the image of Longlegs in the interrogation room. He whispers, "Hail Satan!" and blows a kiss to the audience, leaving Harker's fate, and the fate of everyone else, ambiguous and unresolved.